Hey everybody, good morning. I hope everybody had a good breakfast this morning and getting going. You finally got the sun out today, which was really nice. And see the regulars are on here. You got morning to Scott, Stephen, Timothy, and William, Bill. Good morning to you, and David Schwartz. Good morning to you. So we've got the five horsemen of the apocalypse here on board this morning to start off with. Uh, we're going to take a look at what's going on this morning because you got this wrapped up animal that is sitting just southeast of Nova Scotia, actually probably about right near the coast, but about halfway between Nova Scotia and Newfoundland. And I pulled up some of the webcams. It really wasn't too much going on the Nova Scotia side of it, but I'll give you guys the link to it. I also don't know whether some of these webcam sites, you got to read the fine print with regards to whether you can share it or not. And I didn't find anything that said I could, but did not find anything that said I couldn't. So, but I didn't find anything that said like the Armory Cam says, you can share us as long as you give credit. We're good with it. So anyway, here's a link to it. If you guys want to take a look at it later today, there's some nice camera shots, but they really weren't showing too much. It was hard to see on some of them in terms of the motion. It was sort of jumpy. You'd get a frame like every 5 or 10 seconds or so, and you really couldn't tell too much from it. But it did look very gray and dismal right along the immediate coast, and there was mostly rain there. Some shots from the Newfoundland cams. There was some snow on the ground, and I went to one that looked particularly interesting, and it said I clicked on it, and it was like, "Oops, camera's not there." So I don't know when that shot now was taken or if it was current time. Okay, so a couple of things as far as going forward is concerned, and I know the snow lovers' attentions automatically jump over into next Tuesday, but we've got the system for late Saturday, Saturday night, and very early Sunday morning. I think for most places, if you use, let's say New York City and coastal New Jersey, if you draw a line there up the Hudson River, so just draw a line at that point, uh, it'll probably start mid to late afternoon to the west of that, and early evening to the east of that. And it should be done for everybody by the time we get to daybreak Sunday. Sunday's looking like a very, very good day with clouds and some sunshine and a west wind. And we have to wait for the cold front to come through. So we could get pretty warm Sunday. I think we could get into the 60s in a lot of spots. So uh, outdoor decorating, fall cleanup, take advantage, of course. And then the next system is for Tuesday. We are going to be colder all of next week. There seem to be two weather systems in play over the longer term next week on Tuesday. And I think what you need to do is expect models to continue moving chess pieces around. We know what the that is, and that is, I think, going to be front and center as far as what's more important. Let me just show you a couple of things that are going on this morning, and this is something you don't see too often, so I'll bring it up. But we actually have a severe weather risk in California today. We've got a marginal risk of severe weather. So this is the powerhouse that's coming inland that is going to be bringing the rain Saturday night and Sunday, and actually what looks like a long duration snow event from parts of Nebraska, central eastern Nebraska across Iowa in through Wisconsin and southeastern Minnesota. It looks like there's going to be a long duration snow event there. And I think some places are going to wind up with a foot plus before it's all said and done. There's a lead weak system that's producing a little precip. We know that's going to fall apart before it gets here, just that the clouds might survive from that. All right, so uh, let's get I want to take a look. We're going to take a look at some of the observations that are going on at the moment off the coast with the big storm that's near Nova Scotia. And I don't know if Ben McGinnis is watching, if he's on this morning, but he gave us the webcam sites, and I thank you for that link. And I did find one for if if you just Google webcams Newfoundland, you'll get a page that will come up with that. So hang on one second. Let me just window capture this. There we go. It's here somewhere. That's it. So bring that to the top. All right. So these are the latest obs, and we are seeing, gusts certainly into the low 40s. There's a gust of 52 on the northwest side of Nova Scotia, but it's basically 40 knots or higher. This is in Sydney. We have a gust to 52, sustained at 40, gust at 52. And here on Prince Edward Island, St. Peter's, they are 30. Let's see, it's 33, 32. I don't know whether it's snowing there or not, but it's 33, 32. Can you imagine if it's raining there? North at 30, gusting to 44. I mean, talk about miserable. Harrington is 32, 32, so probably it's more than likely snowing there. Relative humidity 101%. Okay. Wind north at 39, gusting to 52, peak wind at 52. We've got, let's see, Summerside Automatic, the auto weather reporting station. They're 31, 30. So it's got to be snowing off of Prince Edward Island. And the wind there is 41, gusting to 54. So they've got, they've got blizzard conditions going on there. Probably if it's snowing hard enough, especially with this wind. And moving to Newfoundland, we're seeing a gust of 58 in Burgeo, where it's 39 there. At Bosque, I'm assuming I'm pronouncing that correctly. Gusting to 55. Wreck House is 44. So it's not that. In some places, it's surprising how warm it actually is. 44 northeast to 25, gusting to 38. You got to remember where the low center is. You're getting colder air that's getting pulled down into in Nova Scotia. Newfoundland is north and east of the storm center, so they're getting the wraparound coming in from the east. 39 in Stephenville, 44 gusting to 54 there. And this is on the west side, so we'll just go over to the east. St. John's, no ob there. Bonavista is 37, 36, east-northeast at 30, gusting to 39. And the Cape Race, no real ob there, so something must be going on as far as Cape Race, Newfoundland. Here's the surface map, so you can get the new one. Should have the 15Z map in shortly if it's not in yet, and it doesn't look like it's in yet. Okay, so we've got a very deep, very intense low. It's still driving the wind here. We're still in a bit of a pressure gradient. I know I'm still getting gusts here into the high 20s and low 30s right now, but at least we're doing it with plenty of sun. But here's the how it looks on the surface map. You've got this 958 low, 956 closed isobar, so it's probably down to a 954, just sitting off southeast of Prince Edward Island, if I'm looking at the map correctly, and I might not be. So it's it's southeast of there, and I'm sorry, it's north. This is where it gets confusing. It's northeast of there. It is southeast of it's almost straight south of Newfoundland and straight east of the eastern part of Nova Scotia. I gotta, kind of, it's the map's on a bit of a curve, so gotta. I'm so used to just looking at it in terms of horizontal and vertical lines as far as latitude, longitude is concerned, and what's south and north. But you can see that the storm there is still very, very wrapped up, and we of course just getting the western edge of that gradient now. But still, a few isobars here. The high is centered in West Virginia, so we're on the back edge, and we're going to continue to see the gradient relax as that high builds in going forward. Now we do have a lot of activity, a building area of winter storm watches up from eastern Montana across South Dakota, northern Nebraska, northwestern Iowa, southeastern Minnesota. I suspect you're going to see this area increase a bit more and also you'll start to see the additions of areas into Wisconsin. And I don't know if this is going to reach as far south down to Chicago. You also have the energy coming into the west. Winter storm warnings up in the mountains of California. You got a lot of high wind advisories, high wind issues up and down California. Flood watches up, winter storm watches in some areas surrounding the winter storm warnings, even up into southern Oregon. So, this is a pretty impressive system that is coming in, and it is going to be troublesome with regards to our weekend forecast. It also sets the table for the system that follows. So let's go to the weather models here. I'm going to come back to the European. I want to start with let's start with the NAM, and we are going to get the precip up. Okay, sorry, just give it a moment. I kind of went in with the idea I was going to start with the European, and this is what happens sometimes. I start changing my mind on things. Okay, so just got to wait for the maps to load up, because this is really more toward the end of the event. This is on Monday. You still have, this is Sunday night, and you're still having snow going on back through Nebraska and Iowa. This system's going to lift up toward the Great Lakes, and then the upper system, the upper air becomes just kind of weird looking. This low is going to occlude out, backing it up to, not much is going to happen tonight. So we can start here now. We don't need to see the first 24 hours. So you got this weak system that arrives for later Friday afternoon. We're certainly going to get into some clouds, and you can see there's like, I threw in the isolated chance that there could be a spot rain or snow shower with this. I'm not going to sit here and try to pinpoint who's going to get something with the system this week. And then, of course, you've got this next low that revs up. And you see the orientation is kind of east-west here. The low is going to occlude out, and you're going to have this upper low that's just going to kind of sit there back to the west. So for tomorrow, you begin to see, actually overnight and during the day tomorrow, you see this east-west band of heavy snow that develops across northern Nebraska and back through much of South Dakota. And then the surface low sort of just sits there during Saturday night and Sunday. So and at this point, you're starting to see the snow spread into central and northern Wisconsin and into the upper peninsula of Michigan. It's kind of just pinwheeling around, and we're getting this arm of showers that moves through Saturday night. Now, the model is a little bit slower with the arrival here, not until very late in the afternoon or early evening for just west of New York City. And then after that, it goes east of New York City. And then the rain takes actually a little longer to get out of the way. That might be the one thing that you have to be careful about with Sunday is the timing, because if it comes in later, it's going to get out later, and it might take a little while for us to break out into some sunshine. I was thinking that it would be over by daybreak, but this is at what the radar is supposed to look like at 10 a.m. So it might bode well for areas inland, but where the improvement will take place. But it might take the coast up until lunchtime or early afternoon if we buy the speed, and that is a critical question here. There's also some kind of weak low that forms in here. I don't know how real that is. There's a frontal boundary there. It's kind of it's a bit of a warm front in the occlusion just sort of lifting up, and all of that getting left back behind. So then we're going to wait for the cold front here. So Sunday should be a pretty mild day until the cold front goes through, and now we can jump to the GFS to take a look, because we can now jump ahead to Tuesday. Now I don't know. I haven't seen it beyond Monday night, so we're gonna see it for the first time together. I explained yesterday what the issues were with the upper air. You saw the maps I put up showing how radically different the upper air was, with the European collapsing that northern jet down, while the GFS was making a ridge in between the system to the east and the system to the west, and that turned out to be wrong. Kind of had a notion that the northern jet was going to be stronger in all of this. It just didn't look right, and you had too many models citing on the idea of the northern jet versus the southern. Now, I think the question's going to be, does that northern jet overwhelm We are going to be cold enough. I don't think that's the issue. I think the issue is if the northern jet overwhelms everything, then you're going to wind up with a surface low that's going to go way out to the south and east and not be an issue, not be a problem. And if you look at the GFS from today, it certainly suggests that that is the case. That you're going to have this over. Now suddenly, this is what I love about this model. Sometimes you go from it having this amped up look with a ridge that builds in between the trough to the east, the trough to the west. All right, and now it goes to this sort of it goes totally in the opposite extreme, where it takes the northern part of the jet stream and just completely overwhelms it. You can tell this from the surface map. You can barely find anything. There's development here Wednesday morning somewhere way out in the Atlantic, well east of the Carolinas. And in the meantime, it's just for this time of year, it's very cold, but it's very dry. And now we're setting the table up late next week for a system that is coming out of the Gulf states. And there's cold air that's coming back in because there's a cold front that it's in the eastern lakes. But you know what? I'm not ready to reach a verdict on this on today's scenario. I think you're still going to be moving chess pieces around for a while. And here's the upper air. Again, going from yesterday and the day before, and we had a couple of model run flips in between. Look at this difference. This is hysterical when I see this, to see how just horrible sometimes these models are in the not too distant long range, by the way. So look at Wednesday. Let's go back. All right, I'm going to go back to Wednesday, 24 hours ago. Okay, the upper air for the same time frame, the same time frame, and look, a humongous difference. Look at this ridge that was in the east, and this well-defined upper low sitting just west of Chicago, fairly deep trough that's coming out there, deep trough with the Saturday night storm out east of Newfoundland, and it pops this big ridge right in the middle. And then you go to today, which it has this incredible. Now it's got a shortwave trough. It's obviously the northern jet is so much more important, and the models are some models are having a tough time with this. The European last night was kind of interesting. Just going to run this real fast. So you see the upper feature with this actually goes off the Virginia coast. The flow is split, but it's kind of just getting kicked out to the east. It's not really lifting northward because you got this other short wave right behind it that's kicking it along for Wednesday night and Thursday. And now you're seeing more energy in the north with another system coming across the southern states. So that is the GFS's view of all of this. So let's look at the European from last night, which had what I thought was a fairly interesting and a situation that was a little bit more complex. Same shortwave for Monday night, so it's faster actually, but it has a much more vigorous system in that southern stream, and I think that's what you're going to have to. What's key. If there's more vigor, if there's a more vigorous system in the southern stream, if you get this northern part of the jet to relax just a little bit, there might be room for something to come up further north. This is where the European last night had snow, basically a coating to an inch up to just north of New York City. So if you follow the flow here, that would make sense. And if you look at the 546 height line, that was basically where the back edge of 1 to 3 inches was. So the Central and South Jersey, but Northern Ocean, Southern Monmouth, Northern Ocean County, 195, south and east in a zone of 1 to 3 inches on the European, and you've got that short wave right behind it that kind of digs down. The timing. It's if there was a little bit better timing here, where you have this lead system and then you have the one behind it, they're completely separate. If you had the southern shortwave a little slower, if you had the northern shortwave a bit faster, you probably would have a much more vigorous storm system to deal with. And then as we head toward the long range on the European, you've got another shortwave coming down from the north and another system in the southern stream, and that's for late next week. Which the GFS, by the way, and be very cautious on the overnight run here, builds a very strong ridge to the east of this system in the southern stream, and a ridge in the west. The ridge goes all the way up. It doesn't even recognize the northern jet, which the European is showing. So given that we see that the northern jet is obviously more important with what's going to be happening early next week, I think we can assume that the models, the GFS as it was last night, was in error in kind of dismissing the notion of that northern jet still being a player for later next week. It's complicated. It always is, and especially when you're looking at this far out in the long range, it's just not. It's not easy to figure this all out. Norma Belshaw, nice to see you on board today, guys. You got any questions? Let me know. I'm coming back to the screen now because let's see. I have to hit the road. I thought, I know I was doing the live streams at 9:30. But I slept late this morning, and I knew it wasn't happening. So I'm already. I figured, all right, let me get everything done. I have. I'm gonna head to work right after. I got to get in the car and drive. So I'll get changed. I'll get dressed, and then we'll sit down. We'll get the new GFS. We'll have the new NAM, and it's not critical to the short range forecast that we needed it at 9:30. So I pushed it back to 11. I think it probably, it works better because we get more of the GFS out, and you guys get at least a heads up on what the models are doing. Let's see. You're surprised that a new low is not forming at the point of occlusion. Are you talking, David, about, for Saturday night? There probably is. There's probably going to be a low at the point of occlusion that's gonna that is gonna develop. So models don't always show that. You got to look carefully at the NAM on tidbits, if only because the isobars on the NAM maps are kind of on the light side, so it's a little hard to see. That could be where you see that surface low that I pointed out for Sunday morning. That might be where the point of occlusion low is, and the rain from that would be for Saturday night. Good point for the normal high, Scott, 49. That's correct. So we start December usually at about 48 for a normal high, and I think we get by the end of the month we're down to 39 or 38. So we've got 9. Basically, we lose 1 degree every 3 days, and the probability of accumulating snow increases every day that we go by statistically. I think the mean first 1-inch date for New York City is I think it's December. I want to say December 9th or December 14th. Those two numbers stick in my head. It's one of those two over the long haul. We should do like the Dow and have a volatility index. Yeah, the VIX was up 6% a little earlier. I happened to notice that. Okay, let's see. Is it the models or are people putting info into the? If it's the models or people putting info in the computer. I always had this sort of long-term conspiracy that going through a whole number of years where you were waiting for models to kind of decide, in situations where you're looking for the storm to be either further north or further south. I had this notion that there were these, little minions that were running around, and they would create these scenarios to get everybody worked up, and then just as it was time for something to happen, the next to last or the last model run before the event would come in and take it away. That actually happened a couple of times over the course of my career, where models were telegraphing a storm, and then at the last minute just kind of pulled it away. And in one instance, it was correct, and in one instance, it was, and in a couple of instances, because it's done it a couple of times, including in the blizzard of '96, it did that. Cut all the amounts in half, and very close to like the day before on one of the runs. The Canadian last night, Scott, actually was still trying to take a low up to the Great Lakes, believe it or not. I mean, that's just how crazy it is. And that was the model that yesterday, by the way, was the compromise model between the GFS and the European, where the GFS was taking, still trying to take a primary up to Western New York. And Actually, we do have the new Canadian, so we can give that a look. Hang on one second. Um, I'll start with, okay. I'm going to bring the preset map up. So give me a moment here. Oh boy. All right. So this is the new Canadian. So that's actually next Saturday. And the maps are very slow to load. I don't know if Levi's having, server issues, or is everybody kind of on here at the same time waiting for these models to come in? Because the maps are literally loading one at a time. This is so slow. All right, it's got to 120. So I'll just we'll go backwards. I didn't go that far backwards. Okay, so here's 78 hours. So we know the Canadians actually taken, come on. All right, so that moves out. Cold air comes in. You can't even find it. I mean, look at this. Now from a wrapped up low to the Great Lakes, now we have a weak wave that develops east northeast of the Carolinas. 1 run later. Look, I'm not even, you know what? Trust me, I don't want to switch to the overnight run because it's going to take forever to load this back. So just for laughs, we'll move it along. So then we got a short wave that comes through another front for Friday, so more cold air comes in, and then another wave goes out underneath us. The overall take to me, however, at least from both the models, is that it seems as if the longer term solutions are cold. Whether we're going to get the setup or the setups for snow might be another matter. I gotta believe, I gotta think, guys and gals, if and Charlie Baker's just on. So hi, Charlie. I gotta think that with the pattern the way it is, if it's cold enough, if we do have that cold air connection maintained for the most part over the next couple of weeks, I gotta think one of these systems is going to bring some precip, and by the way, it might come in a way where um, you're not seeing it on the models. That happens a lot, where there's something that really doesn't look all that important, and then suddenly you get inside 84 hours or 72 hours and it becomes important. So don't be too shocked if there's something in there along the way that's not really front and center at the right now, but might be a front and center a bit later on. I wonder if Stephen Franco, if the northern stream will be too overwhelming and push all the storms to the south. That's always a concern. You've got to have that kind of delicate balance between, you got to have enough of a northern jet so that you've got a source of cold air to come in. At the same time, you also have to have enough of a southern jet to bring up any weather systems in the subtropical jet and bring it up close enough and to impact into the cold air. And it's always this kind of balance back and forth. Too much cold air, and what happens? It gets suppressed way to the south. And then coastal South and North Carolina get their obligatory once a winter snow and ice threat. And then it moves away. Or if it's not enough, then you start talking about where you wind up taking a low, wind up taking primary lows up along or west of the Appalachians, and you bring, you get these situations where you start off as frozen and then go over to rain, and you deal with that. So there's always that very delicate balance. Every once in a while, you get so deep into the cold air where it doesn't matter, so that any kind of energy that comes along is able to grind out some snow, and sometimes, surprisingly, it can grind out a lot of snow. So there's different ways that, but it all really boils down to, for the most part, for us, it's always that kind of that delicate balance between the northern and southern jet. Too much of one, not enough of another. That really is how it plays. Okay, so let's. I'm going to wrap it up, and yeah, you know what, Scott, the YouTube Joe and Joe. Actually, I was thinking about that this morning. About just I pretty much try to get him on there when the weather is pretty active. So when we get into the winter months, it basically will come down to once a week. Um, and then because we do the live show at 9:15, we do the live Facebook show. So that's more on a daily basis. And of course, he has announced to me that he's got the camera. His son hooked up the camera to his computer, so now he'll be able to Skype from home, and I'll be able to get him into the live streams even when he's off, and then hopefully I'll have to show him how to work the software. So the opposite will be true when I'm off. So anyhow, that's it for now. Okay, guys. So we'll regular YouTube live stream tonight, probably at about 7:05, and we've got the Facebook show tonight at 9:15, and there'll be some posts up along the way as we go through the afternoon, except for the next hour and a half to 2 hours because I'm gonna finish up what I'm doing here and head off to work. No signal interruptions. Glory, hallelujah. All right. Have a great afternoon, everybody. Stay safe, and we'll talk to you later.